You must begin with the end in mind, not the end in fear, not the end in uncertainty, but the end clothed in assurance. Imagine right now that life is not a puzzle to be solved, but a script you are writing, and in this script, everything always works out for you. Not sometimes, not in rare moments of grace, but always. Every event bends toward your benefit. Every circumstance rearranges itself for your elevation. And even what seems like delay is simply preparation in disguise. You were never meant to be a victim of life. You are the author. You were never meant to react endlessly to circumstances. You were meant to create them. When you act as if everything always works out for you, you are not hoping, you are knowing. You walk into rooms expecting favor. You face obstacles with an inner calm because you know they are stepping stones, not stumbling blocks. The world begins to reflect your inner conviction. The mirror cannot reflect what the face refuses to show. You cannot plant a seed and keep doubting its growth. The gardener does not dig up the soil every day to check if the roots are taking hold. He waters it, he nourishes it, and he waits because he knows. That is the level of certainty you must bring to your imagination. Assume the result. Wear the feeling of everything working out. Let it sink into your bones until it becomes your natural response, until it is no longer something you practice. It is simply who you are. The person who walks by faith does not require proof. They live in the end. They feel the joy of a resolved problem, even while others still see chaos. They dance in celebration, while others mourn in doubt. Because to act as if everything works out for you is not delusion, it is creation. You're not ignoring facts, you're commanding them. You're not blind to reality, you are shaping it. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. You are aligning yourself with the truth that consciousness is the only reality, that what you accept within must be mirrored without. So if you can truly accept deeply and completely that life bends in your favor, then life must obey. The bridge of incidents will form, people will show up, conversations will unfold, doors will open, not because you forced them, but because you became the version of yourself for whom these things naturally happen. When something appears to go wrong, you don't panic. You persist. You return to the state of knowing. You return to the end where it already worked out. You walk through the storm holding the feeling of sunlight on your face. And in time, the storm dissipates, and your inner world becomes your outer world. To act as if everything works out for you is to carry peace into battle, clarity into confusion, certainty into unknowns. It is to whisper to yourself in silence, I already have what I desire. I already am who I desire to be. And then watch as life rearranges itself, not in rebellion, but in obedience to your inner law. So don't just believe in miracles, expect them. Don't just visualize a better life, embody it. Don't just wish things were better, act as though they already are. Because the moment you accept that everything always works out is to occupy the state where the universe has already fulfilled, but to catch up. It is not a wishful stance nor a hopeful one. It is a knowing. It is the difference between longing for something and having it. And the mind, when properly disciplined, can create this internal certainty with such clarity that the outer world must conform to it. Living from the end is not about changing the world through effort. It is about changing yourself inwardly to the point where the world reflects your new state. When you truly dwell in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, your conversations change, your posture shifts, your expectations rise, and your energy becomes unmistakable. People feel it, opportunities sense it, and reality begins to rearrange itself accordingly. This inner stance is not something you turn on and off like a switch. It becomes your natural identity. You no longer say, I hope this happens, but instead, I'm thankful it already has. You begin to see yourself as someone who simply lives in the blessing. There's no begging, no bargaining with life. There's only calm authority, an inner calmness that flows from knowing how things end before they begin. Because when you dwell in the end, you know that the ending is certain. You feel the peace of answered prayer, even if the world hasn't yet delivered the package. It's already yours in consciousness, and what is yours in consciousness must become yours in form. People often get caught up in asking how something will happen, but when you live from the end, you never concern yourself with how. The how is never your domain. The how belongs to the unseen laws that govern this universe, and those laws respond only to your assumption, not your anxiety. When you live from the end, you understand that your only job is to feel the end as real, to see yourself there so vividly that the means to get there must arise naturally. You become like the actor who embodies a role so deeply, the performance is no longer acting. It is truth. You don't pretend to be wealthy, healed, loved, or successful. You simply walk, breathe, and exist in the assumption that you already are. Think of a person lost in a beautiful dream. In the dream, they walk the streets of a new city, feel the sun on their skin, hear the voices of people congratulating them, experience the joy of success or reunion. While dreaming, it all feels real. The body may still be in bed, but the soul is already there. This is the same principle. You live in the dream, not to escape reality, but to create it. Your outer life begins to organize itself around the internal dream, and over time, the dream hardens into fact. This is not fantasy, it is the law of life. You may look around and not yet see the evidence. Your bank account may not yet show the numbers. The people you wish to connect with may not have called. The health you imagine may not yet show in your body. But that's irrelevant. The truth is not what the senses report. The truth is what you've accepted as real within. The outer world is a mirror, delayed but faithful. It reflects what you hold inside. So when you live from the end, you're not waiting. You are aligning. You are tuning your soul to the station of fulfillment. And like a radio, you only hear what you're tuned into. Tune into disappointment, and life will echo it. Tune into gratitude for already having, and life will echo that. Living from the end requires discipline of attention. It means refusing to react to appearances. It means denying the evidence of the senses when they contradict your assumption. This is not denial of reality, but selection of reality. For in a world of infinite possibilities, the one you most persistently imagine is the one that manifests. You must remind yourself, again and again, that your world is not shaped by what you observe, but by what you accept. Acceptance is the key. When you accept a state as yours, you move into it effortlessly. And once you've moved into the state, the details fill in around you. Life fills in the blanks. People show up. Coincidences occur. You find yourself at the right place at the right time, saying the right thing. And it feels so natural that you may forget you ever imagined it first. Living from the end is also an act of detachment, not from your desire, but from the lack of it. You stop checking for signs. You stop questioning when it will happen. You stop comparing your journey to others. You walk as if it's already done. You smile for no reason. You breathe easier. You let go of the strain and step into the joy of the fulfilled version of yourself. You don't chase, you attract, because the fulfilled version of you does not chase. The fulfilled version of you is magnetic. It draws people, events, and circumstances that match the state. And this drawing power comes not from willpower, but from inner certainty. The world responds most powerfully to those who have nothing to prove. And when you live from the end, you become that kind of person. You no longer defend your worth. You no longer seek permission. You no longer wait for external validation. You are enough. You are whole. You are already there. And the world, as it must, adjusts itself to your assumption. You find that people start treating you differently, not because they've changed, but because your inner stance has. You see new doors open, not because you begged for them, but because you were already walking through them in imagination long before they appeared. So living from the end is not a practice you do once a day. It's a state you dwell in. It's not about repeating affirmations for a few minutes and returning to fear. It's about staying in the feeling of the end until it becomes so natural that anything contrary to it feels foreign. The moment you truly dwell in the end is the moment your inner world begins to command the outer. And from that place, all things must unfold, not as effort, but as expression of who you now are. Inner conviction is the quiet force that shapes everything. It is not loud, not boastful, not theatrical. It moves silently beneath the surface, yet it determines the entire flow of your life. What you deeply believe, what you accept without question, becomes the foundation of every experience you encounter. When you carry the unwavering assumption that everything always works out for you, this inner certainty starts to color how you walk, how you speak, how you interpret events, and how others respond to you. Reality, as solid as it may seem, is far more malleable than most realize. It does not operate independently of your inner world. It follows it. This is the great secret most never discover, that belief is not passive, it is creative. What you believe about yourself and your life forms the blueprint upon which reality is built. If you believe that you're unlucky, unsupported, or doomed to struggle, your world begins to echo that belief back to you in countless ways. It's not a punishment, it's a mirror. And when you shift the belief, when you begin to accept deeply and fully that everything is conspiring for your good, then the mirror must shift its reflection too. Not immediately perhaps, but inevitably. Inner conviction rewrites outer reality because the outer is not the cause, it is the effect, and your dominant feeling, the persistent mood you carry, is the signal that informs what life must send back. People often wait for proof before they believe, but life doesn't work like that. Waiting to see something before believing it is like refusing to turn on a lamp until the room lights up by itself. The light of your belief comes first. It illuminates the path ahead, and if your inner world radiates the certainty that everything works out for you, life will have no choice but to align with that truth. Not because you manipulated it, but because you became one with the reality you desired. You moved into the state where all is well, and that state becomes your home. And as with any home, what you dwell in eventually defines you. It doesn't matter how many times things have gone wrong in your past. It doesn't matter how long you felt stuck. The past has no power unless you give it permission. The only thing that matters is what you accept as true right now. Right now, you can decide that from this moment forward, life bends toward your highest good. You can decide that your desires are valid, that your goals are achievable, and that your path is guided, even when you don't see how. And when that decision becomes a conviction, it starts to alter your emotional responses, your interpretations of setbacks, and your interactions with others. What once looked like a barrier now looks like a blessing in disguise. What once triggered anxiety now awakens trust. The world hasn't changed, inner conviction is not something you force. And so the world must reflect it is something you cultivate. It grows stronger every time you return to the vision of your fulfilled desire. Every time you feel it real, every time you assume it's done, every time you act from the state of already having it, it takes root deeper within you, and eventually it becomes so real on the inside that any lack of evidence on the outside no longer bothers you. You stop reacting, you stop explaining yourself, you stop needing validation. You rest in the knowing. You stop trying to figure it all out because you trust that it's already working out. And that trust becomes a magnet. It draws the exact circumstances, people, and opportunities that match your inner state. Some will call this delusion. They will say you're ignoring facts, but in truth you're choosing which facts to energize. You're choosing which reality to invest your belief in. Because even facts are not final. They are temporary appearances shaped by prior assumptions. And what you assume now begins the creation of new facts. So why not assume the best? Why not walk in the conviction that the universe is rigged in your favor? Why not carry the sense that you are always in the right place at the right time, that every delay is divine timing, and that every closed door is redirection, not rejection? This is not a mindset you apply selectively. It is a life you embody. It's how you move through your day. You wake up expecting goodness, you go to sleep trusting that things are unfolding. You interpret detours as divine setups. You stop taking things personally because you know that what is truly yours cannot miss you. And even in moments of discomfort, you hold to your inner truth. Everything works out for me. Not because I'm lucky, not because I'm special in the eyes of the world, but because I've chosen to live in alignment with the reality I've imagined. I've chosen to assume that my life flows in harmony with my highest good. And that assumption is enough. The truth is, life will always reflect your strongest assumptions. And if you make the conviction that all things work in your favor, your dominant inner state, then the evidence will come, not to convince you, but to celebrate with you. You'll look around one day and realize that everything is different, not because the world changed first, but because you did. Your thoughts softened, your beliefs elevated, emotional tone shifted from fear to faith. And as your inner garden blossomed, so too did the outer. This is the sacred art of living with conviction, not blind faith but felt reality. It is the difference between hoping and knowing. And once you truly know, you no longer chase results. You rest in your inner certainty, and life, as it must, rises to meet you there. Persistence is the quiet strength that moves mountains, even when no one sees it happening. It is the invisible decision to remain loyal to your vision, even when your senses scream otherwise. When you walk in the assumption that everything always works out for you, the world might not immediately agree. It may present situations that seem contrary. It may offer delays, detours, or silence. But none of these appearances matter to the one who truly understands the power of persistence. Because you are not seeking evidence, you are creating it. You are not waiting for life to approve your dream, you are living from the conviction that it is already done. And in this space of inner authority, persistence is no longer effort. It becomes a form of alignment. Those who truly manifest the life they desire are not necessarily the most talented, lucky, or well-connected. They are the ones who persist in the unseen. They hold their inner stance, regardless of outer noise. They remain rooted in their belief, not because circumstances are favorable, but because they know the seed has already been planted. And they don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. They water it with faith, they shine light on it with gratitude, and they persist, not because they are forcing the outcome, but because they have already accepted it as real. When appearances contradict your desire, that is the moment your faith is tested. It's easy to believe when the signs are everywhere. But real transformation happens when nothing seems to support your belief, and you still choose to persist. You still choose to feel as though it's already done. You still walk with the same confidence, speak with the same assurance, and carry the same peace. Because to you, the end is already written. The outer world is simply catching up. Persistence is the refusal to be distracted by temporary appearances. It is the inner discipline that says, I will not abandon the reality I have imagined just because the present moment doesn't reflect it yet. You understand that the outer world is delayed. It is not the source, it is the echo. And the echo always comes after the sound. So you keep speaking the language of your fulfilled desire. You keep living in the feeling of it. And eventually the echo arrives. This is not about repetition for the sake of repetition. It's about saturation. It's about saturating your mind with the image and feeling of your fulfilled state until it becomes your natural mood, until it becomes more real to you than what your eyes see. That is the moment when manifestation becomes inevitable, because your internal world is no longer reacting to the external, it is leading it. But there are moments when doubt will whisper in your ear, asking you to be realistic, asking you to lower your expectations. But if you surrender to doubt, you step out of the creative state. You hand over your power to the external world and ask it to tell you what is possible. But when you persist, you stay rooted in the truth that you are the operant power, that nothing moves in your world unless it moves through you first. So even when your heart trembles and the evidence is absent, you do not waver. You persist in the assumption that everything works out for you because you know it's already true in the unseen. To persist is to carry peace into chaos. It is to smile at what once triggered panic. It is to remain unmoved while the world reorganizes itself to mirror your belief. Because persistence does not demand, it knows. It does not strive, it allows. And it does not chase. There is a stillness that comes with true persistence. You no longer obsess over how things will unfold. You no longer need constant reassurance. You have gone beyond the need for signs because you have become the sign. Your inner world is so saturated with the end result that any deviation feels temporary. You know it's all part of the unfolding. You don't rush the process. You trust it. And in that trust, your energy becomes magnetic. You draw what you need without effort because your conviction is now the dominant vibration. People often mistake waiting for persistence, but waiting is passive. Persistence is active, but not in the way of striving or chasing. It's active in your consciousness. You remain mentally faithful to the state of the wish fulfilled. That is the true work. And it's not always glamorous. It's done in silence. It's done in solitude. It's done when no one is watching. But it's the most powerful act you can perform. Your reality does not respond to fleeting desire. It responds to persistent assumption. The assumption you return to again and again becomes the seed that life nourishes. And even when storms come, you hold steady. You do not interpret difficulty as denial. You interpret it as refinement, as preparation, as the sculpting of your character to match your desire. And you persist, not because you're forcing your will on the world, but because you've already received it in your spirit. And what is received within must be expressed without. Think of the artist who sees the final painting before the first stroke is made. The painting lives within him. He persists through each stage, not because he hopes it will become what he sees, but because he already sees it as complete. Every stroke is an act of faith. Every brush is a declaration of the finished work. That is how you must live. Every action, every thought, every word let them all be born from the vision of the fulfilled state. Persistence becomes your posture. It becomes your home. And from that home, you begin to view life differently. You no longer panic at setbacks. You no longer fear delays. You see each moment as working in your favor, even if it disguises itself as resistance. Because you are not reacting to life, you're commanding it. And you command it by persisting in your chosen state. The world will test your resolve. It will ask if you really believe. And your answer is not in your words. It's in your persistence. It's in the quiet confidence you carry when nothing around you seems to agree. That is when the shift begins. That is when the unseen starts to move. Because you dared to hold the vision. You dared to stay faithful to the unseen. And life, as it must, bows to the one who does not waver. Your imagination is not a passive daydreaming machine. It is the divine tool through which reality is formed. It is not something to be used occasionally when you're trying to escape life. It is the very power that designs life. Everything you experience now was first born in someone's imagination, whether it was conscious or unconscious. Every building you see, every system you operate in, every relationship dynamic you find yourself in, it all began as an idea, as a mental image, held with enough focus and emotion that it found its way into form. When you begin to understand that your imagination is not just for fantasy but for function, everything changes. You start to approach your inner world with reverence. You begin to treat your thoughts like seeds and your feelings like the soil they grow in. Most people imagine by default, not by design. They rehearse worry instead of success. They visualize worst-case scenarios and call it being realistic. But they do not realize that the universe does not judge whether your imagination is used for fear or for faith. It simply responds to the dominant vision you hold. If you constantly imagine things going wrong, doors closing, people turning against you, then you are scripting that outcome. You are writing a play that life will be forced to perform. But the moment you flip that script, when you imagine victory, harmony, progress, abundance, then you begin to reshape the story. What you consistently imagine begins to sink into your subconscious mind. And once the subconscious accepts it, it becomes automatic. Your reactions change, your mood changes, your energy shifts. You start to speak from a different place, walk differently, think differently. And all of it flows from the blueprint you carry within. The subconscious is not creative, it is obedient. It does not argue, it executes. And what it executes is the plan you give it, over and over, in vivid emotional imagination. You must remember that imagination is not fantasy. It is rehearsal. It is preparation. It is construction. When you imagine yourself as confident, healthy, successful, and deeply at peace, you are not escaping reality. You are building it. The outer world has no choice but to reflect what you have already completed inwardly. So many people exhaust themselves trying to manipulate the external world. They chase relationships. They beg for opportunities. They seek validation. But they do not realize that the external is only a reflection. It has no power of its own. You do not need to beg the mirror to show a different face. You need to change the expression you are wearing. When you adjust your internal image, the mirror has no choice. It reflects you instantly. This is how reality works. If you hold a self-image of being unloved, unsupported, or unsuccessful, then life must echo that back to you. It is not cruelty. It is law. And that same law will work for you, not against you. The moment you begin to consistently imagine yourself as you wish to be. To do this properly, you must learn to quiet the outer world. You must find moments to withdraw from the noise, from the chatter of doubt, from the opinions of others. In stillness, your imagination becomes sharp. You can hear your inner voice again. You can feel the truth of what you desire. And in that space, you begin to feel the scene of your fulfilled wish. Not watch it like a movie, but feel it as though it's real. What would it feel like if you were already there? What would you see? What would you hear? Who would you be? These are not just questions, they are invitations. And as you accept the invitation to live in the end, your imagination starts to take form. It becomes your home. You live from that state, not just in meditation, but in waking life. People who understand the power of imagination stop reacting to the world. They become deliberate creators. They do not concern themselves with how something will come. They focus only on assuming it already has. The how is not their job. The how belongs to the same intelligence that grows trees, orchestrates the stars, and beats your heart without you thinking about it. You are not meant to micromanage life. You are meant to imagine it into being and then live in alignment with that image. When you do, life bends to meet you where you stand. Your imagination is also your sanctuary. In times of disappointment or confusion, it offers you a safe space to recalibrate. You can return to your inner world, rebuild the scene, and step back into the feeling of fulfillment. It is not about ignoring problems. It is about remembering your power. When something outside doesn't go your way, you don't spiral, you go within. You revise the moment, you create a new outcome in imagination. And if you remain faithful to that image, the world adjusts. It has no choice. You must become emotionally involved with your imagined scene. Feel it so deeply that it becomes more real than your current conditions. That feeling is the fuel. Without feeling, imagination is lifeless. But when emotion and imagination merge, creation begins. The subconscious accepts the scene as fact, and circumstances start to move. The bridge of incidents begins to form. People enter your life, conversations change, coincidences begin to happen. But to the one who imagined it, none of this feels surprising, because they already lived it first in consciousness. Even when nothing seems to be changing, you must continue imagining, continue believing, continue holding the vision. Reality often takes time to catch up to the frequency of your inner world, but it always does. The key is to stay faithful, to hold the image with the same emotion and certainty regardless of appearances. Because appearances are not the truth. Your inner world is the truth, and your imagination is the creative workshop where all things begin. There is no limit to what you can create when you understand this. You can rewrite your past, reshape your present, and pre-design your future. You are never stuck, you are never trapped. You are simply imagining the same things over and over. Change the image and life follows. Train yourself to dwell only on what you want to experience. Starve the images of lack, fear, and failure. Nourish the visions of love, success, and peace. And above all, remember this: your imagination is sacred. It is not make-believe. It is the blueprint of your destiny. Treat it with the power and respect it deserves, and it will return to you a life beyond your wildest dreams. Feeling is the engine behind all creation. It is the invisible current that turns mental pictures into living experiences. You may speak affirmations all day, think positive thoughts, or recite beautiful phrases, but if they lack feeling, they are hollow. It is not the words alone that carry power, it is the emotional energy behind them. Feeling is what signals to the subconscious mind that something is real. And once the subconscious accepts it as real, it begins to move everything necessary to make that reality visible. When you act as if everything always works out for you, It cannot remain an intellectual exercise. It must be felt in your bones, in your breath, in the rhythm of your daily life. That feeling of security, that confidence, that joy of already being where you want to be, that is what transforms a desire into destiny. Most people confuse desire with belief. They want something badly, but they don't feel it as true. They think about the things they hope will happen, but inside they still feel lack, they still feel worry, they still feel doubt. And so the signal they send into the universe is one of absence, not fulfillment. The feeling of wanting is not the same as the feeling of having. The feeling of hope is not the same as the feeling of certainty. You must shift from craving something outside of you to experiencing it within you. That's the secret. You must learn to conjure the emotional state of your desire fulfilled and rest there, not just for a moment, but long enough that it becomes your new normal. This is not pretending, this is not tricking yourself or playing make-believe. This is embodying a truth before the world can confirm it. This is about stepping into the role of the version of you for whom the outcome is already settled. You don't need to prove anything, you don't need to force it. You simply live from the feeling that it is already done. And this feeling then begins to orchestrate circumstances in your favor. Doors open, paths clear. Things that once felt stuck begin to shift, but all of it happens as a reflection of your inner state. Life mirrors the vibration you carry, not occasionally, but constantly. Feeling is the secret because it is the evidence of belief. You don't have to say you believe if you feel that you already have it. You must ask yourself, how would I feel right now if everything truly worked out for me? What would my body feel like? What would I stop worrying about? How would I walk into a room? What kind of energy would I give off? That's where the transformation begins. Not in some distant future, but right now, in the way you carry yourself. Begin to feel the relief, the joy, the ease, and the celebration of a life that supports you. When you live in that feeling, you become a magnet for everything that matches it. So many people live in the feeling of frustration, of confusion, of fear, and then wonder why their life reflects it. But they have not yet learned to cultivate the emotional atmosphere of fulfillment. They wait for something outside to make them feel good, instead of realizing that feeling good is what brings the outside change. The cause is always internal. And when you learn to control your inner weather, the outer climate begins to cooperate. It's not that challenges stop coming, but your response to them changes. You meet them with grace, because your feeling remains steady. Your emotional state becomes anchored, not in circumstances, but in truth. Even when things appear to go wrong, even when outcomes seem delayed, you return to the feeling, you return to the knowing that all things are working out. And in that place, peace is restored. That peace becomes your power. You stop rushing, stop forcing, stop doubting. You begin to carry a quiet confidence that others can feel, even if they don't understand it. That is the power of felt truth. It doesn't require defense. It simply is. Feeling also has the power to bypass logic. You may not know how things will happen. You may not have the full picture, but if you feel it real, you don't need all the answers. You rest in the assurance that the answers will come. The mind loves logic and structure, but the heart knows what is real, even without explanation. When the feeling is strong, the mind begins to follow. It looks for evidence to support the dominant emotion. And soon, life begins to deliver it. Coincidences, unexpected opportunities, moments of clarity, all flowing from the vibration you've chosen to live in. There will be times when it feels hard to hold the feeling, when the world feels heavy and the vision feels distant. That is when the real work begins. That is when you must choose to return again and again to the inner state, not by forcing, but by remembering. Remember what it feels like to be supported. Remember what it feels like to win. Remember the feeling of being loved, healed, understood, and elevated. That memory, when felt deeply, becomes a prophecy. It is not a wish, it is a signal. And that signal changes everything. Feeling is not optional in the process of creation. It is the fuel. It is what gives color and depth to the picture in your mind. Without it, your imagination is dry. But with it, the vision becomes alive. It breathes, it moves, it becomes magnetic. So train yourself to feel what you desire as though it were already yours. Live in that emotion. Let it soak into your habits, your conversations, your posture. Let it become the dominant frequency of your day. This is how transformation happens, not in a flash, not in a sudden miracle, but in a consistent alignment with the feeling of your fulfilled desire. You begin to act, think, and speak from the identity of the one who already has it. And as you do, you realize that the outer world has no choice but to adjust, because the outer is only ever the servant of the inner. And once the inner has accepted the new reality through feeling, the outer must bow to it. It cannot resist the energy of someone who lives as if all things are already working out. Because for that person, they already are. There is a great power in silence, a force that shapes reality without resistance. When you understand that creation is finished, that all possibilities exist now, you no longer chase, beg, or force. You assume, and in that assumption, the world reshapes itself to align with your inner certainty. The unseen is always greater than the seen, and silence is the bridge between the two. The world has taught you to react, to explain, to prove, but what if you did nothing? What if you simply knew? The one who remains silent in conviction moves mountains without effort. You do not need to announce your desires, nor convince anyone of your worth. You need only assume it to be so, and in that quiet knowing, the world bends. There is no need to argue, no need to defend. When you react, you reaffirm what you wish to escape. When you remain still, you command without words. Everything responds to your state of being, and the one who walks in silent confidence is never in lack. The moment you stop explaining yourself, the moment you stop seeking validation, is the moment everything begins to move in your favor. You do not chase what is already yours. You do not plead for what exists within. You sit in the stillness of knowing, and the world rearranges itself around you. The unseen hand of creation is always at work, and it responds not to noise, but to certainty. You need not shout your desires into the void. You need not only assume they are fulfilled, and in that assumption, they become real. Silence is not weakness, it is mastery. It is the quiet authority of the one who knows they are the operant power. To act as silent is not to do nothing. It is to move from within. It is to hold the end in mind so firmly that the world has no choice but to obey. The one who knows does not waver, does not doubt, does not argue. They simply are, and because they are, so it is. Silence is not emptiness, nor is it weakness. It is the most profound form of power. In a world where noise dominates, where people seek validation through words, reactions, and explanations, silence stands as the ultimate authority. It does not beg, it does not plead, and it does not justify. It simply is. And in that stillness, it commands. When you observe nature, you see this principle at work. The sun does not announce its rising, yet the world awakens in its presence. The river does not argue with the rocks in its path, it simply flows, and over time it reshapes the landscape. The seed does not shout its potential, yet buried in the darkness of the soil, it silently transforms, pushing through the earth until it emerges as a mighty tree. Everything that is truly powerful moves in quiet certainty, never seeking permission to be. The same law applies to your life. When you understand that you are the operant power, you no longer feel the need to explain yourself or prove your worth. The moment you stop reacting, the moment you stop justifying your desires, you step into the realm of effortless creation. What you want is not achieved through struggle or argument, but through the quiet assumption that it is already yours. When you hold this inner knowing, the world has no choice but to respond. Society has conditioned you to believe that you must fight for what you want, that you must convince others of your value, that you must be loud to be heard. But this is an illusion. The greatest power is found in stillness. The more you react, the more you give power to external forces. The more you explain, the more you seek validation from outside yourself. And the more you seek, the more you affirm that you do not have. This is the paradox of reality. What you chase runs away, and what you embody comes effortlessly. When you observe those who truly move the world, you will notice a common thread. They do not argue. They do not waste energy in reaction. They operate with an air of quiet confidence, an unshakable certainty that does not need to be spoken. They know who they are, and because they know, the world responds accordingly. This is not arrogance, it is mastery. It is the understanding that the external world is only a reflection of one's internal state. Change the state, and the world changes in response. Consider for a moment how often people lose power simply by speaking too much. When someone wrongs you, the instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to retaliate. But in doing so, you acknowledge the wrongdoing as something that has power over you. The moment you react, you place yourself in a position of weakness. But what happens when you do nothing? What happens when you refuse to engage? You strip the event of its power. You stand unmoved, and in that stillness, you remain in control. The one who does not react is the one who dictates the course of events. This is not about suppression or avoidance. It is about a deep inner knowing that you do not need to engage with anything that does not serve your highest good. When you are silent in the face of negativity, you are not passive. You are actively choosing the reality you prefer. You are shifting your focus away from what you do not want and toward what you do. And because your focus is the true creative force, the reality you give your attention to is the one that manifests. There is a reason why wisdom is often associated with silence. The wise do not speak unnecessarily because they understand the power of energy. Every word you speak carries a vibration, an intention. When you speak from a place of doubt, you strengthen the doubt. When you speak from a place of needing validation, you affirm that you are incomplete. But when you remain silent, when you hold your state within, you allow the universe to work on your behalf. Think of how powerful silence is in relationships. The moment you stop explaining, stop chasing, stop demanding, the dynamic shifts. The other person senses the withdrawal of your energy, and suddenly they are drawn to you. This is because silence creates space, and space creates attraction. When you do not need, when you do not beg, you exude a quiet authority that is irresistible. This principle applies to everything in life. The more you resist, the more you struggle. The more you struggle, the more you affirm that you do not have. But when you relax into silence, when you embody the state of already having, you open the floodgates for everything you desire to come to you. This is the essence of true power. Acting as silent, knowing without the need to prove, being without the need to announce. Imagine walking into a room and saying nothing, yet commanding attention. This is the effect of inner stillness. Those who carry themselves with the energy of knowing do not need words to assert their presence. Their state of being speaks louder than any speech. The world is a mirror, reflecting back to you what you project. If you move through life with quiet certainty, the world will reflect certainty back to you. If you move through life explaining yourself, convincing others, trying to prove, then you affirm that you do not yet believe in your own power. Everything you want is already within you. You do not need to announce it to the world. You need only to assume it and let it be. The unseen forces of creation respond to certainty, not to noise. The moment you stop looking outward for confirmation, the moment you stop seeking external validation, the moment you stop reacting, you reclaim your power. You step into the space of effortless manifestation, where things come to you not because you chase them, but because you embody them. To act as silent is not to do nothing. It is to move with such inner conviction that the world cannot help but conform. It is to rest in the knowing that what is yours is already done. It is to be so certain in your assumption that you do not need to prove it, because reality itself will prove it for you. It is in this space of stillness that true power is found. What you assume to be true becomes your reality. This is not a belief, it is a law. Everything you experience in life is a reflection of the assumptions you hold, whether conscious or unconscious. The world does not happen to you by chance. It is shaped by your inner state, by the ideas you accept as fact. You do not need to struggle to make things happen. You do not need to fight against circumstances. You need only assume that what you desire is already yours, and in that assumption it will unfold naturally. Assumption is the creative force behind all things. Before anything exists in physical form, it first exists as an idea, a state of being, a belief held within. The house you live in, the clothes you wear, the job you have, all of these were once unseen. They existed first in the realm of thought, before they took form. The same principle applies to your desires. When you assume that something is true, you align yourself with the reality where it is already so. And because you are the operant power, the external world must reflect that assumption back to you. The process is effortless because it is natural. You do not need to force a tree to grow from a seed. It happens naturally because the potential for the tree is already contained within the seed. Likewise, when you assume a new reality, you do not need to force it into existence. You simply live in the feeling of it being real, and life rearranges itself to match that assumption. This is why struggle is unnecessary. Struggle comes from a state of disbelief, from assuming that you do not yet have what you want. But when you assume the end result is already accomplished, the need for struggle disappears. Consider for a moment the things in your life that came to you effortlessly. Perhaps it was a friendship that formed without effort, a job opportunity that appeared at the right time, or a solution to a problem that seemed to resolve itself. These things did not require struggle because at some level you assumed them to be natural and inevitable. The same applies to everything else in life. The only difference between what comes easily and what feels difficult is the assumption you hold about it. If you assume that money is hard to earn, you will find yourself in circumstances that reflect that belief. If you assume that love is scarce, you will experience situations that reinforce that idea. But the moment you change your assumption, the external world must follow. If you assume that opportunities flow to you effortlessly, they will. If you assume that you are already loved and valued, the relationships in your life will begin to reflect that truth. The law is precise, unchanging, and absolute. Many people misunderstand the power of assumption because they confuse it with wishful thinking. To assume something does not mean to merely hope for it. It means to accept it as fact, to live as though it is already done. You cannot assume one thing and act in contradiction to that assumption. If you assume that you are successful, but your actions are driven by fear and doubt, then you have not fully accepted that assumption as your reality. True assumption is lived. It becomes the foundation upon which you move, think, and exist. The key is to shift your focus away from what is currently visible and place it on what you know to be true within. The world is only a reflection, a delayed response to what you hold in consciousness. If you judge your circumstances as proof of what is real, you remain stuck in a loop. But when you hold firm to your assumption, regardless of what appears in the moment, reality will bend to fit your inner state. It must, because it has no choice. The power of assumption is best understood through experience. If you wish to test it, begin with something small. Assume that you will hear from a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Assume that you will receive unexpected good news. Do not question how it will happen. Simply accept it as done and move on with your day. The moment you let go of doubt, you will begin to notice reality shifting. Things will fall into place in ways that seem coincidental, but they are not coincidences. They are the natural unfolding of your assumption. There is no force in this process. You are not manipulating reality, you are simply aligning yourself with the version of events that already exists. Every possibility is available to you at this very moment. The version of you that is wealthy, healthy, loved, successful, it already exists. The only reason you do not experience it yet is that you have not assumed it as true. You have been living under different assumptions, ones that may have been shaped by past experiences, by societal beliefs, or by unconscious fears. But the moment you change your assumption, you step into a new reality. Many people make the mistake of looking to the world for confirmation before they believe. They say, "I will believe it when I see it." But that is not how the law works. You must believe it first, and then you will see it. The world is a mirror, reflecting back to you whatever you hold within. If you want to see a new reflection, you must change the image in your mind. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even before there is any evidence of it. This is where most people struggle because they allow their senses to dictate what is real. They look at their bank account, their relationships, their circumstances, and they assume that what they see is all that exists. But what they do not realize is that what they see is only a past manifestation. It is the result of previous assumptions, not a fixed reality. The moment they shift their assumption, the external world must follow. This is not about ignoring reality, but about understanding that reality is fluid. It is always changing, always responding to the state you hold within. When you assume that something is already yours, you remove all resistance. You stop questioning, stop doubting, stop searching for signs. You simply know. And that knowing becomes the seed from which your new reality grows. There is no limit to what you can assume. The only limits that exist are the ones you accept as true. If you assume that anything is possible, then it is. If you assume that you are the creator of your experience, then you are. The only requirement is that you accept your assumption fully, without contradiction. This is why assumption is effortless. It is not about forcing the mind to believe something unnatural. It is about recognizing that you are already assuming things all the time. Every day you assume certain truths about yourself and the world, and those assumptions dictate your experience. The question is not whether assumption works. The question is whether you are using it to create the life you desire or to reinforce limitation. You have always been shaping your reality through your assumptions. Now you can do so consciously. You can choose the assumptions that serve you, the ones that bring you joy, abundance, and fulfillment. And when you do, the world will shift accordingly. It has no choice, because assumption is the law. Silence is the greatest power because it is the space where creation happens. In silence there is no conflict, no resistance, no contradiction. It is in the quiet state of being where you align with the reality you seek. Words, explanations, and outward effort often interfere with the creative process, introducing doubt and uncertainty. But silence carries certainty, a quiet confidence that does not need validation from the external world. When you hold a thought in silence, it becomes powerful. The moment you speak of your desire, you risk dissipating its energy. Words invite outside opinions, doubts, and resistance from others who may not see what you see. The more you talk about something, the more you expose it to disbelief, your own and that of others. But when you keep a desire in silence, it grows within, undisturbed by external influence. It is like planting a seed and allowing it to take root beneath the soil, where it cannot be disturbed before it is strong enough to emerge. Everything that comes into being first exists in the realm of the unseen. Before an idea becomes reality, it must be held in consciousness. But to bring something into form, the mind must be quiet and receptive. When the mind is restless, when it seeks confirmation and reassurance, it scatters energy. But in stillness, the mind becomes a channel through which creation flows effortlessly. This is why silence is the most powerful state you can cultivate. The external world is nothing more than a reflection of what exists within. If you spend your time reacting to what is already manifested, you remain stuck in the cycle of past assumptions. But when you withdraw into silence, you step beyond appearances and into the realm of pure potential. You become the observer, the creator, the one who decides what comes next. Instead of responding to life, you begin shaping it from within. Most people misunderstand silence because they associate it with inaction. They believe that to create change, they must do something, say something, make something happen. But true power lies in stillness. The most profound shifts occur in moments of deep silence, where no words are needed, no explanations are given. This is because silence allows the full acceptance of an assumption without interference. The moment you claim something as yours, internally, without the need to justify it, you have set the process in motion. Consider how the most transformative moments in life often come in silence. When you receive a deep realization, it does not come through noise or effort, but in a quiet moment of clarity. When a great idea emerges, it is often in a space of stillness. When you feel the deepest connection to something, it is not through words, but through an inner knowing. This is because silence is the language of creation. The world operates on energy, and energy moves where attention flows. When you focus on a desire in silence, you direct all your energy toward it without scattering it. Talking about your goals, explaining them to others, or seeking approval dilutes this energy. It invites doubt, resistance, and external opinions that can weaken your belief. But when you remain silent, your energy remains undivided, allowing your assumption to crystallize into reality without interference. This is why those who understand the power of silence rarely speak of their desires before they are realized. They do not need to convince anyone of their vision because they know it is already done. They do not seek reassurance because they are certain within themselves. They move in quiet confidence, knowing that what they assume in silence will soon be reflected in the world. Silence also protects your state of being. The moment you share a desire, you open yourself up to the energy of others. Not everyone will see what you see. Not everyone will believe in what you believe. Some will project their fears onto you, some will dismiss your vision, and some will unintentionally plant seeds of doubt in your mind. But when you hold your vision in silence, you shield it from outside influence. You keep your energy pure, allowing your desire to unfold naturally. There is also a profound wisdom in allowing things to unfold without force. The greatest manifestations occur when you trust the process, when you do not need to explain, justify, or seek validation. When you trust in silence, you release attachment to how and when something will happen. You know that the moment you have assumed it, it is already in motion. This detachment allows life to organize events effortlessly in your favor. Silence is also a tool of mastery. Those who are truly powerful do not speak excessively. They do not explain themselves unnecessarily. They do not seek approval. Instead, they move with quiet assurance, allowing their actions and results to speak for them. This is because they understand that power is not in words, but in the energy behind them. When you embody something fully in silence, your presence alone will command attention. The mind craves validation, but silence transcends that need. When you resist the urge to talk about your desires, you strengthen your inner belief. You no longer need to convince yourself or others, you simply know. This knowing is what brings things into being. The more certain you are, the faster things align. The moment you need to explain or defend something, you reveal doubt. But when you sit in silent conviction, the universe moves to meet your inner state. There is a reason why some of the most successful people operate in silence. They do not reveal their moves until they are complete. They do not speak of their plans before they have taken form. They understand that energy flows where attention goes, and they guard their energy carefully. They do not waste time defending their vision to those who cannot see it. Instead, they trust in the unseen, knowing that silence is the bridge between imagination and reality. The most powerful creations come from a place of deep inner stillness. When you align with the reality you seek in silence, without doubt, without question, without the need to prove anything, you allow it to materialize effortlessly. This is why silence is the ultimate state of power. It is the space where all things begin, the void from which all creation emerges. When you understand this, you no longer seek validation, nor do you fear the opinions of others. You move in quiet certainty, knowing that what you assume in silence will soon become visible for all to see. The moment you release the need to prove yourself, you step into true power. There is a deep and quiet confidence in knowing that what you desire is already yours. Most people operate from a place of seeking validation, trying to convince others of their worth, their plans, their abilities. But this very act of explaining and justifying weakens their position. The need to be understood, to be approved of, is a reflection of doubt. Those who truly believe do not seek validation. They do not need to explain themselves because they already know. Silence is a declaration of certainty. When you move in silence, when you hold your desires within you, without the need to broadcast them, you align yourself with the highest level of faith. You are not asking for permission. You are not waiting for approval. You are not looking for signs or reassurance from the outside world. Instead, you carry within you the deep knowing that what you desire is already done, and this knowing is what calls it into being. The strongest presence is the one that does not demand attention. It does not seek recognition, yet it commands respect. This is because silence carries an energy of unshakable confidence. When you do not explain yourself, when you do not defend your choices, when you do not seek approval, you operate from a position of strength. You are not swayed by opinions, by doubts, by external circumstances. You are rooted in your own certainty, and that certainty shapes the world around you. The strongest presence is the one that does not demand attention. It does not seek recognition, yet it commands respect. This is because silence carries an energy of unshakable confidence. When you do not explain yourself, when you do not defend your choices, when you do not seek approval, you operate from a position of strength. You are not swayed by opinions, by doubts, by external circumstances. You are rooted in your own certainty, and that certainty shapes the world around you. There is a reason why the most powerful people in history have understood the value of silence. They did not waste words trying to convince others of their vision. They did not announce their plans before they were complete. They did not seek validation for their ideas. Instead, they moved with quiet determination, allowing their actions to speak for them. And when they finally revealed their creations, there was no need for explanation, because the results spoke for themselves. When you act in silence, you bypass resistance. The moment you announce your intentions, you invite external forces into your reality. Some will doubt you, some will discourage you, some will project their fears onto you. But when you keep your plans within, when you hold them as sacred, you do not give others the opportunity to interfere. You protect the energy of your desire. You allow it to grow undisturbed, free from outside influence. The most powerful manifestations happen in secret. This is because energy flows without interruption when it is not scattered. The moment you speak of something prematurely, you begin to dilute its energy. You open the door to doubt, to skepticism, to resistance. But when you remain silent, you keep your energy concentrated. You allow your inner world to shape the outer world without interference. This is not about secrecy, it is about mastery. It is about understanding that not everything needs to be spoken aloud, that the most powerful transformations happen in the unseen, in the quiet moments of conviction, in the unwavering belief that does not require external confirmation. When you hold a desire in silence, when you nurture it in your own consciousness without broadcasting it, you are giving it the space to become real. When you walk into a room with silent confidence, people feel it. You do not need to announce your presence. You do not need to prove your worth. Your energy speaks before you do. This is the power of silence. It carries a force that words cannot. When you embody this, you realize that the strongest statement you can make is not in what you say, but in what you do not say, in what you hold within, in the quiet certainty that requires no validation. When you walk into a room with silent confidence, people feel it. You do not need to announce your presence. You do not need to prove your worth. Your energy speaks before you do. This is the power of silence. It carries a force that words cannot. When you embody this, you realize that the strongest statement you can make is not in what you say, but in what you do not say, in what you hold within, in the quiet certainty that requires no validation. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you free yourself. You are no longer bound by the opinions of others. You are no longer waiting for approval. You are no longer seeking permission. You move as though what you desire is already yours. And because you move in this way, the world has no choice but to align with you. The need to explain, to justify, to seek validation is a form of insecurity. It suggests that you are not fully convinced of what you claim to believe. But when you are certain, when you truly know, you do not need to prove anything to anyone. You do not need to seek agreement. You do not need to persuade. Your silence is the greatest proof of your faith, and faith, when held unwaveringly, becomes reality. Think of the most powerful forces in existence: the wind, the ocean, the shifting of the earth. They do not explain themselves. They do not ask for permission. They move with quiet strength, reshaping everything in their path. This is the way of true power. It does not seek recognition, it simply is. When you move in this way, when you act in silence, when you hold your vision without needing validation, you align with the greatest force of all, the power of knowing. You do not need to tell the world what you are doing. You do not need to prove yourself. You do not need to announce your plans before they are realized. Instead, you allow your results to speak for you. And when they do, there will be no need for explanations, because the truth of your success will be undeniable. There is a certain mystery in silence that draws attention. When people cannot predict your next move, when they do not know what you are thinking, when they cannot anticipate your actions, they pay closer attention. This is why those who speak the least often hold the most power. Their silence creates intrigue, their presence carries weight, their words, when they do speak, hold meaning. There is a certain mystery in silence that draws attention. When people cannot predict your next move, when they do not know what you are thinking, when they cannot anticipate your actions, they pay closer attention. This is why those who speak the least often hold the most power. Their silence creates intrigue. Their presence carries weight. Their words, when they do speak, hold meaning. The world is filled with noise, with people trying to prove themselves, with endless explanations, justifications, and defenses. But the ones who move in silence, who do not seek approval, who do not explain themselves, who do not need validation, these are the ones who shape reality. They do not announce their intentions, yet they achieve. They do not explain their actions, yet they succeed. They do not seek recognition, yet they are noticed. When you act in silence, you align with the natural flow of creation. You do not force things, you allow them. You do not chase, you attract. You do not seek permission, you simply decide. And in this state of being, everything moves effortlessly in your favor. To operate in silence is to trust that what you hold within will manifest without interference. To trust that your belief alone is enough. To trust that you do not need validation from anyone. When you reach this state, you step into the highest level of creation, the level where what you assume becomes real, simply because you know it to be so. And in this knowing, in this deep and unshakable certainty, you become unstoppable. There is immense power in silence, in the ability to move without announcing, to act without explaining. The moment you realize that you do not need to convince anyone of your worth, your plans, or your abilities, you free yourself from the chains of validation. Most people believe they must declare their intentions, share their struggles, and seek approval before they can move forward. But the truth is, the more you speak of something prematurely, the more you disperse its energy. When you hold your vision within, when you nurture it in the quiet spaces of your mind, you give it the chance to manifest undisturbed. The need to explain comes from uncertainty. When you are unsure, you seek reassurance. When you have doubts, you look for confirmation. But when you truly know, when you are absolutely convinced, there is no need to explain. You do not feel the urge to justify yourself. You do not need to persuade anyone. The greatest strength comes from this deep inner knowing, the kind that does not require external validation. It is in silence that you demonstrate the highest form of faith. Faith is not loud. It does not beg for recognition. It simply is. Consider the way the most powerful forces in the world operate. The wind does not announce itself before it moves the trees. The ocean does not ask for permission before shaping the shore. The earth does not explain before it shifts and changes landscapes. Nature moves in silence, yet its impact is undeniable. The same is true for those who have mastered the art of quiet confidence. They do not seek attention, yet they are noticed. They do not explain themselves, yet they are respected. They do not ask for approval, yet they succeed. When you keep your plans to yourself, you protect them. The moment you speak of your intentions, you invite the opinions, fears, and doubts of others into your space. Some may encourage you, but many will project their own limitations onto you. They will tell you what is impossible based on their own beliefs. They will remind you of their own failures, hoping you will believe that your path will be the same. But when you remain silent, you guard yourself against this interference. You give yourself the freedom to move forward without resistance, without external doubt clouding your vision. Silence is a form of mastery. When you hold your desires within, without the need to broadcast them, you are practicing the highest level of self-control. You are directing your energy inward, strengthening your belief, deepening your conviction, and in this state your manifestation is inevitable. You are no longer scattering your power by explaining, by justifying, by seeking validation. Instead, you are harnessing it, focusing it, allowing it to take form in the unseen before it becomes visible. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you become untouchable. You no longer react to the opinions of others. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself. You no longer waste energy on convincing those who do not see what you see. Instead, you move with quiet confidence, knowing that what you desire is already yours. This is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is understanding that your reality is shaped by your inner world, not by the opinions of those around you. People are drawn to mystery. They are intrigued by those who do not reveal everything. When you operate in silence, you create an aura of strength. You become unpredictable. No one knows your next move, and this gives you an advantage. Those who talk too much, who reveal their every thought, who seek approval for every action, they weaken themselves. They give away their power. But those who move in silence remain in control. They shape their reality without interference, without distraction, without resistance. There is a reason why the most influential individuals do not waste time explaining themselves. They know that true power does not come from words. It comes from presence. When you embody this understanding, you no longer feel the need to defend yourself, to prove your worth, to explain your choices. You simply act, knowing that your actions will speak for themselves. The greatest proof of belief is in action, not in explanation. When you truly believe in something, you do not talk about it endlessly, you live it. You embody it, you move as though it is already done. And when you do this, you do not need to convince anyone. Your reality begins to reflect your belief, and that is all the proof you need. The most successful people in any field understand this principle. They do not broadcast their every move. They do not announce their plans before they are realized. They work quietly, diligently, with a deep inner knowing that does not require external confirmation. And when their success is revealed, there is no need for explanation, because the results speak louder than any words ever could. This is the power of silence. It is the power of knowing without needing validation. It is the power of acting without seeking approval. It is the power of allowing things to unfold naturally without interference. When you embody this, you step into a state of true mastery. You are no longer at the mercy of opinions, doubts, or limitations. You move with certainty, and the world responds accordingly. Everything you desire is already within you. It does not need to be spoken aloud to be real. It does not need to be explained to be valid. It simply is. And when you hold this knowing in silence, when you allow it to take root in the depths of your being, it becomes unstoppable. The moment you let go of the need to explain, you step into a higher level of power. You move beyond the realm of seeking, beyond the need for approval, beyond the limitations of external validation. You begin to operate from a place of pure creation, where your belief alone is enough to shape your reality. The world may not understand you at first. They may question, they may doubt, they may wonder what you are doing. But that does not matter. Because when the results begin to appear, when your vision becomes undeniable, when everything you have held in silence begins to manifest before their eyes, there will be no need for explanation. The truth will be self-evident, and in that moment you will realize that silence was always your greatest strength. There is a power within you, waiting to be claimed, a power so vast, so infinite, that it can reshape your entire existence. You are not bound by circumstances, nor are you at the mercy of what the world tells you is possible. Everything you could ever desire already exists, not outside of you, but within you. The key is to assume it, to live as though it is already yours. Do not wait for the world to change before you feel fulfilled. Do not wait for proof, for evidence, for permission. The world is merely a reflection, a mirror that bends to the state of your being. If you wish to be wealthy, do not beg the world to make you so. Assume the consciousness of wealth. If you wish to be loved, do not chase affection. Rest in the knowing that love is already yours. Whatever you seek, take it now, not with your hands, but with your mind. Your imagination is the blueprint of your reality. Every thought, every inner conversation, every quiet assumption is shaping the world you walk through. If you walk in the feeling of lack, the world will echo lack. If you walk in the confidence of abundance, abundance must appear. This is not wishful thinking, it is law. The unseen world precedes the seen. When you accept this, when you live from the end, the outer world must conform. Feel it now. Step into the version of yourself who already possesses everything. Do not wait for evidence. Be the evidence. Walk with the ease of one who already knows their desire is fulfilled. Carry yourself with the quiet assurance of one who has no need to question. When doubt whispers, dismiss it. When the world presents contradictions, remain unmoved. Reality bends to conviction, not hesitation. It is not your effort that brings things to pass, but your surrender to the state of already having. This is not about forcing the world into submission. It is about aligning with the truth that you are already what you desire to be. The moment you claim it inwardly, the world must reflect it outwardly. Act as if you have everything and everything will be yours. To truly experience the life you desire, you must begin by assuming it is already yours. This is not about mere wishful thinking or daydreaming about what could be. It is about stepping into the feeling of fulfillment before any evidence appears. The greatest mistake people make is waiting for external circumstances to change before they allow themselves to feel successful, abundant, or loved. But the truth is, life does not work that way. The outer world is a reflection of the inner world, and until you shift your internal state, nothing outside of you can truly change. When you desire something, the natural tendency is to acknowledge its absence. You think about how much you want it, how different your life would be if you had it, and you constantly check your circumstances to see if any progress is being made. This very act of noticing its absence reinforces the state of not having. The more you affirm that you do not have something, the more your reality will reflect that back to you. The key, therefore, is to stop longing for what you desire and instead embody the feeling of already possessing it. Imagine for a moment that you have already received what you seek. Close your eyes and feel the emotions that would arise if your wish were fulfilled. If you desired financial freedom, how would you carry yourself? Would you worry about bills, or would you move through life with ease and confidence, knowing that all your needs are met? If you desired love, would you feel lonely, or would you walk with the quiet assurance of someone who is deeply cherished and adored? It is this internal shift that determines what will unfold in your reality. Many people believe they must work tirelessly, chase opportunities, and force circumstances to align with their desires. But true manifestation does not operate through struggle. It operates through belief, through the unwavering conviction that what you desire is already yours. When you assume the state of fulfillment, life rearranges itself to match that assumption. It is not about pretending or fooling yourself. It is about stepping into a state of being that aligns with what you want. Consider an actor who is deeply immersed in a role. They do not merely recite lines. They become the character. They move, speak, and think as if they truly are that person. The audience believes in the performance because the actor has surrendered to the role completely. In the same way, you must embody the role of the person who already possesses everything they desire. When you act from this place of certainty, the world responds accordingly. There is no need to force external changes. When you assume the feeling of already having, actions will naturally align with that state. You will be inspired to take steps that bring your desire into physical form. These actions will not be driven by desperation or lack, but by an inner knowing that the outcome is inevitable. This is the difference between struggle and effortless creation. Doubt is the only thing that can stand in your way. The moment you entertain thoughts of whether or not your desire will manifest, you shift back into a state of lack. This is why persistence is necessary. You must remain loyal to the state of fulfillment, no matter what your current reality suggests. The outer world may show the opposite of what you desire, but your job is not to react. It is to remain firm in your inner assumption. Reality is fluid. It bends to the strongest conviction. When you persist in living from the end, circumstances will shift to match your state of being. This is not an accident or coincidence, it is law. The world does not decide your fate, you do. Your beliefs, emotions, and assumptions shape the life you experience. If you wish to transform your reality, you must first transform your state of mind. The moment you fully accept that you already have what you desire, the struggle disappears. There is no more waiting, no more longing, no more questioning. There is only the quiet confidence that all things are unfolding perfectly. This is the key to effortless manifestation. Not hoping, not wishing, but knowing. When you live from this place, the world must reflect it back to you. Your imagination is the most powerful tool you possess, for it is the blueprint of your reality. Everything that exists in your life right now was first a thought, an idea, or an assumption that took root in your consciousness. The world you see, the circumstances you experience, and the conditions that shape your life are all reflections of what you have accepted as true within yourself. If you wish to change your life, you must begin by changing the images you hold in your mind, for they are the seeds from which your reality grows. Most people believe that their imagination is simply a place for idle fantasies, a realm separate from the real world. They do not realize that their imagination is the birthplace of all creation. Everything that has ever been manifested, from great works of art to scientific discoveries, began as a vision in someone's mind. The same is true for your personal reality. What you consistently imagine, what you dwell upon, and what you emotionally engage with will eventually take form in your external world. It is not enough to simply wish for something or to occasionally entertain the idea of it. The images you hold in your imagination must become so real, so vivid, that they feel more alive to you than your current circumstances. This is the secret to creation. When you persistently assume the reality of your desire, it must materialize in some way. This is not a matter of chance. It is an unchanging law. The unseen world of imagination precedes the seen world of form. Consider for a moment the way a sculptor approaches a block of marble. They do not see the raw stone as it is, but as it will be. In their mind, they hold a clear image of the finished masterpiece long before they ever touch the chisel. The same principle applies to your life. If you focus only on what currently exists, you will continue to replicate the same patterns. But if you can see beyond your present circumstances and hold firm to the vision of what you desire, you will begin to mold your reality accordingly. Imagination is not limited by the constraints of the physical world. It is boundless, unrestricted, and infinite. This is why it is the most powerful force at your disposal. When you close your eyes and immerse yourself in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are stepping into a reality that is just as real as the one you currently experience. The only difference is that the physical world takes time to catch up with the inner state you have assumed. Doubt is the only thing that can interfere with this process. When you allow yourself to question whether or not your imagination has any real power, you weaken your ability to manifest. The key is to remain unwavering in your belief. You must trust that the images you create within your mind are more than just fantasies. They are previews of what is to come. When you nurture these images with faith and conviction, they will take root and blossom in your reality. Your thoughts are not meaningless. They are not insignificant. Every thought, every mental picture, and every assumption carries creative power. This is why it is so important to guard your imagination carefully. If you constantly dwell on fear, lack, and limitation, your life will reflect those conditions. If, however, you consistently imagine abundance, joy, and success, those will become the dominant themes of your reality. The world will always confirm what you believe to be true. If you look around and see evidence of scarcity, failure, or struggle, it is not because the world is inherently that way. It is because your past thoughts and assumptions have created that reality. The good news is that just as your past thinking shaped your present thinking is shaping your future. You are never stuck. The moment you change your inner world, your outer world will begin to shift accordingly. The process of creation begins the moment you decide to take control of your imagination. Rather than allowing it to be directed by external events or unconscious fears, you must consciously guide it toward what you truly desire. This is not about wishful thinking or ignoring reality. It is about understanding that reality is fluid and shaped by the mind. When you commit to living in the assumption of your desired state, life will rearrange itself to match that assumption. There is no force in the universe greater than the power of your imagination. It is the key to all transformation, the bridge between the unseen and the seen. When you fully embrace this truth, you will no longer feel powerless in the face of circumstances. Instead, you will know that you are the creator of your reality and that what you imagine with conviction must come to pass. Confidence is the foundation of manifestation. To bring anything into reality, you must walk with the certainty that it is already yours. There can be no hesitation, no second guessing, no room for doubt. The world does not respond to wishful thinking, it responds to conviction. The way you carry yourself, the way you speak, and the way you think all reflect the state you have assumed within. If you desire something, you must embody the version of yourself who already possesses it. This is not about pretending or acting as if in a superficial way. It is about shifting your entire state of being to align with the reality you want to experience. Many people hesitate when pursuing their desires because they are waiting for external validation. They want to see evidence before they believe. They want to be reassured by circumstances before they allow themselves to feel confident. But this approach is completely backward. Confidence does not come from the outside world, it originates within. It is your belief, your assumption, and your certainty that mold external reality, not the other way around. If you are waiting for signs before you commit to your vision, you will forever be at the mercy of chance. Confidence is not about arrogance or forcing outcomes. It is about a quiet, unshakable knowing. When you truly believe in something, you do not need to convince others. You do not need to constantly affirm it or seek reassurance. You simply know. You carry yourself differently. You radiate certainty. This inner conviction influences your actions in ways you may not even realize. It changes the way you speak, the way you make decisions, and the way you respond to challenges. Imagine two people applying for the same opportunity. One approaches with doubt, unsure of their worth, wondering if they are good enough. The other approaches with confidence, knowing that the opportunity already belongs to them. They do not hope, they expect. The energy they bring to the situation is entirely different. The one who is confident is far more likely to succeed, not because they are inherently better, but because their assumption of success shapes the way they are perceived. The world reflects their belief back to them. This principle applies to every area of life. If you want love, you must walk as someone who is already loved. If you want wealth, you must carry yourself as someone who is already abundant. If you want success, you must move as though it is already yours. It is not about waiting, it is about being. This is the essence of manifestation. Doubt is the greatest obstacle. The moment you question whether or not your desire will come to pass, you introduce resistance. You step out of the state of having and into the state of wanting. And as long as you remain in the state of wanting, you will continue to experience lack. The secret is to hold firm, to refuse to entertain thoughts of failure, and to remain steadfast in the assumption that what you desire is already done. Some people mistake confidence for effort. They believe they must constantly push, strive, and struggle to make things happen. But true confidence is effortless. It is not about forcing the world to conform to your will. It is about knowing that it already has. When you are truly confident, you do not chase, you attract. You do not doubt, you trust. This does not mean you do nothing. It means that any action you take comes from a place of alignment rather than desperation. When you are confident, you move differently. You take inspired action rather than reactive action. You do not grasp at opportunities from a place of fear. You step into them with the assurance that they belong to you. People often ask, how do I develop this confidence? The answer is simple. Assume it now. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not wait for proof. Do not wait for the world to give you permission. Decide in this moment that you are already the person who has what you desire, and then move through life as that version of yourself. This is not about faking it or trying to deceive yourself. It is about recognizing that your current identity is based on past assumptions, and that you have the power to change those assumptions at any time. You are not bound by your history. You are not defined by your circumstances. You are defined by the state you choose to dwell in now. Confidence is a choice. It is a decision to trust in your vision, to stand firm in your assumptions, and to refuse to entertain anything that contradicts your desired reality. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Over time, it ceases to be something you do and simply becomes who you are. And when that happens, the world must reflect it back to you, for it can do nothing else. Your state of being determines everything. It is not your words, your efforts, or your external actions that shape your reality. It is the state from which those things arise. The world is simply a mirror, reflecting back to you the dominant feeling you carry within. If you desire to see a change in your life, you must first embody that change internally. You must become the version of yourself who already has what you seek. Everything you experience is a result of the state you occupy. There is no exception to this rule. If you constantly feel lack, struggle, or limitation, your world will reflect that back to you. If you dwell in abundance, joy, and fulfillment, your world will conform accordingly. The outer world cannot create your inner state. It is your inner state that creates the outer world. Most people try to change their circumstances without changing their state. They work tirelessly to fix external problems, believing that once things improve, they will finally feel happy, secure, or successful. But this is an endless cycle. The external world is always a reflection of the internal. So if you continue to operate from the same inner state, your reality will continue to mirror it. You cannot escape this truth. The only way to truly transform your life is to shift your state first. If you desire wealth, You must not wait for money to arrive before you feel abundant. You must feel abundant now. If you desire love, you must not wait for someone to love you before you feel worthy. You must embody the feeling of being loved now. Whatever you desire, you must first become the person who already has it. This is not about pretending or forcing emotions. It is about assuming the reality of your desire so fully that it becomes your natural state. When you consistently dwell in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, it will externalize itself effortlessly. This is the law of consciousness. You do not need to beg, struggle, or chase. Your world will naturally reorganize itself to match your dominant state. Imagine for a moment that you have already received everything you have ever wanted. How would you feel? How would you carry yourself? What thoughts would occupy your mind? What kind of conversations would you have? How would you approach your day? These are the questions that matter because they reveal the state you must embody now. When you align with this state, your world will reflect it back to you in ways that seem almost magical. There is no need to concern yourself with the how or the when. The moment you enter the state of already having, you set in motion a chain of events that will lead to the fulfillment of your desire. You may not see it immediately, but the process has begun. The more you trust this, the faster it unfolds. Doubt is the only thing that slows it down. Many people struggle with this because they are too attached to appearances. They look at their current reality and think, but nothing has changed. How can I feel different when my world looks the same? This is where most people falter. They allow external circumstances to dictate their state rather than the other way around. But the key is to persist in your new state, regardless of what appears before you. If you can hold firm to the feeling of already having, even when the world seems unchanged, you will inevitably witness the shift. This is why discipline is necessary, not discipline in the traditional sense of forcing yourself to work harder, but discipline in your assumption. You must refuse to entertain thoughts, emotions, or states that contradict your desired reality. The moment you slip back into your old state, you reinforce the very reality you wish to escape. But when you remain unwavering in the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled, your world must conform. The power of state is so absolute that even the smallest shift can have profound effects. A slight change in how you see yourself, in how you feel about your reality, can completely alter the course of your life. This is why some people experience sudden breakthroughs after years of struggle, because they finally shift their state and reality responds instantly. If you want to test this for yourself, pick something simple. Assume a state that is different from your usual one, but not so far removed that it feels impossible. Perhaps you often feel unnoticed. Assume for a day that you are magnetic, that people are drawn to you. Perhaps you often feel financially restricted. Assume for a day that you are abundant, that money flows to you effortlessly. Observe how the world responds. You will notice small but undeniable shifts. People may treat you differently, unexpected opportunities may arise, synchronicities may occur. These are all signs that your state is influencing your reality. The key is to make this a way of life. Do not treat it as an experiment. Make it your new normal. Decide now that you are the person who already has everything you desire. Carry yourself that way, think that way, speak that way, feel that way. When you fully commit to living in your desired state, reality has no choice but to conform. Your state is your destiny. It is the cause of everything you experience. There is nothing outside of you controlling your fate. Only your own assumptions, your own beliefs, your own inner world. When you change your state, you change your life. And the moment you truly embody the reality you seek, the world will rearrange itself to match. Your world is a mirror, faithfully reflecting your inner state. It does not argue, it does not resist, it simply conforms to whatever you believe to be true. The world does not change first so that you may change your beliefs. Rather, your beliefs change first, and then the world follows. This is the fundamental principle that governs all experience. If you desire a different reality, you must first embody the feeling of that reality within yourself. Most people live reactively, allowing external conditions to dictate their state of being. They feel joyful only when something good happens. They feel secure only when they see money in their account. They feel loved only when someone affirms their worth. But this is an illusion. It is an inversion of the truth. The truth is that the external world is shaped by the internal, not the other way around. The moment you understand this, you take back control over your life. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. You are the creator of them. Creation is not about effort. It is not about struggle. It is not about working harder or pushing against the flow of life. It is about alignment. The moment you align with the feeling of already having, the world must reorganize itself to reflect that feeling back to you. This is law. It does not fail, just as the law of gravity does not fail. If you drop something, it falls. If you assume a state, reality conforms. The process is automatic. The only variable is your consistency in maintaining that state. The greatest secret of all is that there is no separation between you and what you desire. The moment you truly feel yourself to be the person who already possesses what you seek, you have it. The outer world may take time to catch up, but the shift has already occurred at the deepest level. And once the shift is made internally, external reality must respond in kind. There is a simple way to test this. Right now, imagine yourself as already having the thing you desire most. Close your eyes and step into that version of yourself. See the world through their eyes. Feel what they feel. Notice how their energy is different, how their posture is different, how their thoughts flow with ease. Stay in this state for a moment. If you truly embody it, even for a few seconds, you will feel a shift. You will feel the weight of lack dissolve. You will sense a quiet certainty arising. This feeling is the key. If you can sustain it, you will see evidence begin to appear in your world. Most people abandon this process too soon. They do not see instant results, so they assume it is not working. But reality is always in motion, always rearranging itself according to your inner world. If you persist, if you refuse to waver, if you remain in the state of already having, the outer world will bend to your assumption. Doubt is the only thing that interrupts the process. Every time you question, every time you look at the world and say, "But I don't see it yet," you undo your work. You return to the old state and reality follows. This is why faith is essential, not blind faith in an external force, but faith in the law itself. Faith in the certainty that your state determines your experience. When you trust this fully, you no longer seek confirmation in the outer world. You no longer need proof before you believe. You simply assume, and you know. The easiest way to hold your state is through feeling. The mind will try to argue, but feeling is beyond logic. Feeling does not need explanation, it simply is. If you can cultivate the feeling of already having, if you can dwell in that feeling consistently, you will move into the reality where it is true. This is why the greatest transformations happen effortlessly, because they are the result of a complete shift in state, not force or effort. The mind will tell you that circumstances must change before you can feel different, but you must break this illusion. If you wait for change before you shift your state, you will wait forever. But the moment you assume your new reality internally, the change begins. The world cannot resist it, because it is only an echo of what you hold within. This understanding gives you complete freedom. You are no longer bound by conditions. You are no longer limited by past experiences or external factors. You are only limited by the states you are willing to assume. If you can believe it, if you can feel it as true, it is yours. There is no other requirement. Your ability to shape reality is not a matter of luck or chance. It is not reserved for the few who seem to have everything figured out. It is an unchanging law, available to anyone who understands it. The question is not whether it works. The question is whether you will fully commit to it. Make this a practice. Each day, instead of reacting to the world, consciously choose your state. Decide who you are and assume that identity completely. Do not let old patterns pull you back. Do not let appearances deceive you. Stand firm in your assumption and watch how life shifts around you. When you live in this way, you become untouchable. You are no longer swayed by setbacks because you know they are temporary. You are no longer trapped by fear because you understand that everything is a reflection of your inner world. You walk with confidence because you know that what you assume to be true must become your reality. There is no effort in this, only discipline. Not discipline in action, but discipline in assumption. Do you have the discipline to hold your new state even when the old reality still lingers? Do you have the strength to remain in the feeling of already having, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise? This is the test. Those who pass it experience the fulfillment of their desires effortlessly. Those who waver remain stuck in the cycle of doubt. Your imagination is not a passive tool. It is the very substance of creation. Everything you see, touch, and experience first existed as an idea, as an image within consciousness before it materialized in the physical world. The unseen shapes the seen, and the inner world determines the outer. The mistake most people make is believing that their imagination is separate from reality, that it is merely a place for fantasies or idle thoughts. But imagination is the foundation of all that exists. It is not an escape. It is the blueprint from which your reality is built. What you accept in imagination as true will externalize itself in your world. It does not matter whether the current circumstances suggest otherwise. The moment you assume something to be real in your inner world, you have planted the seed for its manifestation. The physical world is simply a delayed reflection of your state of being. If you wish to change your life, you must first change what you entertain in your imagination. The world cannot show you what you have not first assumed within. Most people allow external conditions to dictate what they imagine. They see lack and reinforce it by imagining more lack. They feel lonely and reinforce it by imagining rejection or abandonment. They experience setbacks and reinforce them by imagining continued struggle. But this cycle can be broken the moment you recognize that imagination precedes reality, not the other way around. The moment you take control of your inner world, the outer world must follow. It has no choice but to mirror your dominant state of mind. To live a fulfilled life, you must imagine yourself already in possession of all that you desire. This is not wishful thinking, this is creation. Do not wait for external proof before you assume something to be true. Assume it first, and the proof will come. If you desire success, see yourself as already successful. If you desire love, feel yourself already deeply loved. If you desire abundance, dwell in the feeling of already having more than enough. The key is to persist in this assumption, to make it your new reality within, regardless of what the outer world currently reflects. Doubt is the only thing that interrupts this process. If you allow yourself to waver between faith and fear, between assumption and disbelief, you delay the manifestation of your desires. The mind will try to convince you that what you imagine is not real, but this is the great illusion. Imagination is the only reality, and the physical world is merely its shadow. When you fully accept this, you step into your power as a conscious creator. The greatest minds, the most successful individuals, and the most fulfilled souls have all understood this secret. They lived in their imagination first. They assumed their desires as already accomplished before the world gave them any evidence. And because they persisted in this inner knowing, the world had no choice but to conform. When you master your imagination, you master your life. The world is waiting to reflect what you choose to assume. But once you understand this, once you truly grasp that reality is a mirror, you are free. You are free to choose your state at any moment. You are free to step into the life you desire without waiting, without struggle, without limitation. The power has always been within you. The only question is, will you use it?